Can you tell us about Oxfam's history and how it's developed in marketing terms?
Well, the pure history of Oxfam is that it was started in 1942 by a university parson and three other colleagues, and it was in response to there were Greek civilians starving during the Second World War in the Axis-occupied Greece, and the Allied blockade was stopping any supplies getting through. And these people said, look, there's just civilians here, they're the victims of the war and they're starving, and they persuaded the governments to let aid through. And that was the establishment of the Oxford Committee for Famine Relief. And there were other committees for famine relief, all around the country, the Leeds Committee for Famine Relief and so on. But after that initial response to that need, the Oxfam Committee for Famine Relief just carried on. And eventually they took the name Oxfam, which is a reduction of that, which was actually their telex code. This is pre-faxes and email.
Sure.
And so I suppose that was the first instance of branding, if you like, in the world of Oxfam, because I think if we were still called the Oxfam Committee for Famine Relief, I don't think we'd be where we are today, to be frank. I think there's something quite powerful about the name Oxfam that people really, really remember, and it's surprising how many people don't make the connection between Oxfam and Oxford and famine, even when they know we're based in Oxford and that we do humanitarian work. So I suppose that's the kind of first instance of sort of some marketing being applied, which was to reduce the name and effectively create the Oxfam brand. I suppose the next key thing that happened really was the opening of the first charity shop in the world, as far as we know, in 1947 in Oxford. And that was our first kind of high street presence and the first high street presence of any charitable organisation. And now we have 720 shops around the country. And of course, the shops are primarily there to make money for the organisation. It's a business concern, if you like. But of course, they give us fantastic presence and awareness as a brand. But probably the kind of most, the most immediate marketing activity that you would think of with regard to a charity like Oxfam is fundraising. And it is where the bulk of our marketing pound is spent. It's where we make the most investment because we can see a return on that investment, which often is a hard thing for people to sometimes understand. We get criticism because we spend donors' money on things like advertising and marketing, but effectively they're an investment, just like a water pump is an investment, because if we make that investment correctly, we will make more money. So I should think that, if you're talking historically, where there's been the most emphasis on marketing in Oxfam's history has been on that fundraising activity.
Who would you say your customers actually were, and do different segments of customers exist?
Well, we don't call them customers, we call them supporters. And I don't say that to correct you, it's just interesting because I come from a private sector background and I always talk about consumers and then I have to slap myself around the face and say, no, they're supporters. But it's quite a consumer-oriented approach, and Oxfam has a real wide range of audiences, which is a real mixed blessing. So when it comes to fundraising, we have about 500,000 kind of givers on our books, but when we're going out there and acquiring new givers, probably the kind of richest seam for us is the sort of ABC 125 to 34 territory. But we go much, much wider than that because of the size of the organisation and the size of our ambition. We have lots of products for lots of different people. So the straightforward, please give us some money kind of fundraising goes to a very broad audience. But then we have things like Oxjam, which is our music festival, and that will appeal to a youth audience. We'll do things like Trail Trekker, which is our 100-kilometre walking challenge. That is targeted at people who like to do challenges, who aren't necessarily there for the charitable side of things. That's a kind of nice warm glow as a result of doing that activity. But who we're targeting there is people who like to take part in activities. So we really segment our audiences in different ways depending on what it is we're offering them at that moment in time.
What's the primary role of marketing at Oxfam?
Well, there is that obvious one of fundraising. That's probably the one that charities are most well known for. And that's, like I say, where we spend most of our money when it comes to marketing. We also do corporate activity, and I think we're quite unusual as an NGO in doing that. So we have kind of corporate messages, corporate priorities that we feel we need to communicate to the public at large. And the reason we want to do that is that it helps the public position who Oxfam is in their minds. But it also, if you like, warms up the public so that when they are approached by more direct asks, such as a £10 gift or signing a petition or donating to a shop, they've already had that overview of Oxfam. So an example is at the moment we're talking about climate change. That's the number one issue for Oxfam right now. And we are doing a lot of work on climate change, naturally, out in the programme, in countries around the world. We're also doing a lot of work with governments around the world and, at the recent Copenhagen summit and so forth. And it's important to us that the public understands that we're doing that. But probably more importantly, we want the public to understand the human impact of climate change. And so we invest in marketing activity to put out that kind of corporate message, if you like, which, like I say, is quite unusual. And it sort of sits across all our other comms. So then we have the fundraising comms. As I say, we have other activities like Oxjam or Trail Walker, or we're asking people to donate to a shop. We're asking people to take part in a campaign. It's really quite a complex comms calendar that we have.
Can you describe the problem that you faced, that you outlined in the case insight?
Okay, the problem we had was that when we went and spoke to our supporters and members of the public about Oxfam, we discovered that Oxfam is really, really well known. It's really trusted, really respected as an organisation. It's been around for 65 years. It's kind of a household name. It's the Hoover of charities. And that's all great. That's a very solid foundation. But digging a bit deeper, people struggled to describe exactly what Oxfam does. And in particular, a lot of people are unaware of the breadth of Oxfam's actual work. So people know about the shops and they know about our emergency response work, but most people don't think about or know about our long-term development work, about our campaigning work, and so on. The other thing we discovered when we spoke to people is despite all this trust and respect, they don't feel very engaged with Oxfam as a brand. They don't feel very warm about Oxfam, perhaps in the way that they do about their more day-to-day brands that they engage with, whether it's their mobile phone company or where they go and shop. They didn't quite have that relationship with Oxfam. It felt a bit cold, felt a bit distant. And, I mean, those things are worrying in themselves, but what we know from the analysis is that they hinder people's ability to support Oxfam. And so the issue is compounded by what we do, particularly when you look at our competitive set. So if you think of the other charities out there like Cancer Research, NSPCC, they deal with very close to home, very emotive issues. Unfortunately, 1 in 3 people in this country will experience cancer. So Cancer Research, their subject matter is very easy for people to engage with. Ours is much trickier. It's a real barrier for us. We deal with poverty. We deal with faraway countries, faraway people that you're never going to meet. And so we've got to really try and overcome that barrier to get people to engage with us. So that was really the problem, that fundamentally most of our marketing is about getting more support. Oxfam would not exist without its supporters. And if something is getting in the way of people supporting us, then we needed to fix it.
How did you go about actually solving that marketing problem?
Well, we needed to find a newer way of talking about Oxfam to these people. Without reinventing Oxfam, it was really crucial we didn't throw away the bits of Oxfam that they knew and liked. And as I say, we had this very strong foundation of trust and respect, and we had to be careful we didn't destroy that. At the same time, we had to do something that was much more visible so that people turned their heads, looked at us, and then when they looked at us, they saw something, they thought, yeah, that's something I want to be part of. That's something I want to find out more about. That's something I want to, have a relationship with, if you like. Not that people would actually talk like that. And so it was about looking at the Oxfam brand, the Oxfam identity, if you like, the way it presents itself, and saying, how can we present what we do in a fresh and different way? And then secondly, when we do that, how can we do it in a way that is consistent, so that over time we build up the picture we want to build up in people's minds. But secondly, coming back to the complexity of all the things Oxfam offers, we tie all those things together so that we, as an organisation, our budget is nowhere near, the budgets of Orange, M&S. We're outspent by 20 to 50 to 1. So we have to make sure that everything's working hard for us. So that was the other part of the challenge. And so what we did was we found a new way of talking about what Oxfam does, and that's best encapsulated in our strapline, Be Humankind. And what that's really about is we realised that a lot of people out there care about the state of the world. They have an inkling that the world could be better. They're very aware of how the world works, that people are much more globally conscious, if you like. They're aware that their actions might affect people that they will never ever meet, and vice versa. People have a strong desire to be a better person these days. And people want to be part of a community, they want to be part of a movement. And we saw these kind of trends that were happening, and we looked at Oxfam, and we just said, well, hang on, Oxfam has the ability to answer these needs that people have. We're a global organisation that helps people. We're a movement, if you like, that wants to make the world a better place. So we needed to find a way to say, all those things that you're feeling about the world, this is somewhere to come and do something about them. If you like, we wanted people to leverage the humanity inside them and do something with that. So whereas before, in our comms, we talked about fighting poverty, let's all fight poverty, we found out that the P word doesn't engage people, unfortunately. It's what we are passionate about, but the man in the street doesn't know what poverty really is. It's very nebulous and big, and they can't see what to do with it. If we say to them, we're an organisation that's for humanity, we're an organisation that wants to make things better for people, people can engage with that. That's really simple. And so that way of presenting Oxfam neatly encapsulates everything we do, but at the same time has that inspiration within it. So Be Humankind. It's a call to action. It's a rally cry. So it brought in a bit of energy as well. And certainly, as far as actually applying this in our comms, we redesigned our whole brand guidelines, our whole design palette. We use vibrant colours. We use friendly typefaces. Very sort of simple tricks like that. All that with the kind of Be Humankind proposition positions Oxfam in a whole new space for people, but it's not one that's a million miles away from what they knew. It's just like putting on a fresh set of clothes, going, we're still the same person, but we've just had a bit of a makeover, but we fundamentally believe in the same thing. And the interesting thing is, what we believe in is what you believe in.
How do you think marketing actually helps Oxfam achieve its mission?
Well, Oxfam's mission is to work with others to overcome poverty and suffering. If you put that in front of a member of the public, they would probably walk away, to be frank. The idea of tackling poverty and suffering absolutely overwhelms people. We know this from research. Poverty is this huge nebulous problem. A lot of people believe that poverty is just part of the human condition. There will always be 1 billion people living in poverty. And so if we just went out all the time going, help us tackle poverty and suffering, help us tackle poverty and suffering, we wouldn't get anywhere really. And it's absolutely crucial that we have the support of people, whether that's financial support or whether it's their voice or whether it's their time. Oxfam cannot exist without people's support. So the question is, how do we take our mission but present it to people in a way that they feel inspired by, but they also see where they can play a part? And that's where marketing comes in for us. And I think for Oxfam in particular, that is a real challenge. I think with all respect, other charities, such as cancer charities, people can understand immediately what that charity does and what's being asked of them. We don't really have that luxury. So where marketing comes in is it helps us put our mission and the issues that we tackle and the way we tackle them in front of people in a way that engages people and makes people feel like it can be part of their life in a way that feels relevant. Relevance is a watchword at Oxfam. Relevant, relevant, relevant. How do we make ourselves relevant? Marketing does that for us. So we look at the potential supporter, whether it's a housewife or a student, and we say, what's going on in their life and how can Oxfam play a part in that? And that is marketing, fundamentally. It's positioning ourselves into people's lives. And so what we've seen is if we talk about Oxfam in the way that we do with Be Humankind, if we talk about tackling, helping people around the world, then people feel inspired by what they see, and probably most importantly, they think, I could do something about that. I have a role in that.
Thanks very much, Nick.